A video of two women being paraded naked in Manipur went viral recently. The two women seen in the video were also raped. This viral video finally broke the silence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who condemned the incident. At the same time, the opposition started demanding that a discussion be held in the parliament, and they wanted Prime Minister Narendra Modi to speak on the subject. Well, all this has happened with the nation looking at both the opposition as well as the party in power to do something about Manipur. But what will the impact be in terms of electorally? This is a subject that we have taken up in our Political Adda episode today. Please welcome Dr. Chandrachur Singh, who is an associate professor at Hindu College in Delhi University. Welcome, sir. We also have with us the political editor of ThePrint, DK Singh. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So let's start with the first question itself, sir. If at all there will be any electoral impact nationally, and what would it be?
Well, in a parliamentary democracy, Neelam, it's always the issues in the federal space which will resonate on electoral scenes, right? And particularly given the fact that the elections are due next year, so it can be said with certainty that issues starting from now on, going into the elections, these issues will keep changing, but these issues will always be there. And therefore, Manipur will definitely be a political issue, is a political issue right now. And, the way it pans out, the way the opposition projects it, the way the BJP counters it, will all be important factors in deciding how the momentum and which side gains the momentum going into the elections of 2024. So I do see Manipur issue becoming important in not only today, but also resonating particularly in the near times to come, because these are larger issues. Manipur is not just about, it's not just one state or one incidence that has happened. I think, members of both political parties, both political formations, cutting across their ideological hues, they are of the opinion that what happened cannot be accepted. Nobody on this earth can accept what happened or condone what happened in Manipur. So I think it's a humanitarian crisis. And I think, therefore, the issue will play out both inside and outside the parliament. As you can see, it's currently being played out. How the two groups, manage it, how the two groups go about, taking stand on it, getting the public opinion on it. I think these are the issues which will ultimately decide the momentum as it goes in from here.
In fact, it will also depend on how long it lasts. Because, on Thursday, Amit Shah was interacting with journalists where he said 82% of students are back in school, 72% of government employees are back in offices. There has been no death after the 18th of July. Of course, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, because when you are talking about 82% coming back to schools or government employees coming back, we are talking about, say, cookies going back to to the offices or the schools in their areas, mateys going back, doing that in their areas. So you have a clear geographical division. Is that acceptable? Would you call that a sign of normalcy? Of course not. But then if you do not have violence from now on, and we know how short the public memory is. I mean, the fact that you have a complete geographical partition in Manipur, that will be forgotten very soon. And we see how the political discourse develops. I mean, we saw Narendra Modi on Thursday saying Rajasthan, giving a slogan in Rajasthan, Bahu betiyon pe atyachar nahi sahega Rajasthan. I mean, Rajasthan will not tolerate atrocities against daughters and daughters-in-law. So this is how the BJP is going to start playing it. And unfortunately, if we see what's happening in Northeast, you see the outrage of politicians in parliament, but you don't really see that public outrage out on the streets, something like what we witnessed in 2012 after Nirbhaya case. So resonance, yes, it's resonating. But how long it will last also depends on how the people are reacting, because so far we do not see that intensity in terms of public reaction.
Well, that's true. I mean, what you're saying is true, but that is where that's what I was trying to build up to. I mean, it depends on how the opposition plays on it or how the opposition projects the issue. I mean, if you simply look at the issue in terms of a violence or organized violence or crime against women or atrocity against women, then of course that's one way of looking at it. But then, if the opposition can project it or kind of a prick a hole in the narrative that has been there from 2014 till now. And what's that narrative built on? That narrative is built on a developmental state, Hindutva being planked on developmentalism, a greater sense of nationalism, Akhand Bharat, cooperative federalism, kind of Team India coming together, taking India on, surging ahead. And on top of that is the magical personality of Prime Minister Modi. Now, this is the core of what has happened, whatever has been happening from 2014 till now. And despite the fact that 2019 elections happened in between, the interlude was not an interlude in the real sense of the term, because you see that in 2019, the Congress was too much attacking the Prime Minister. Do understand that the Union of India is consisting of the states. So whatever happens in the state will be reflected in the parliament. So therefore, it's reflecting in the parliament. But perhaps this the opposition strategy of pricking a hole. Can the opposition prick a hole in this narrative? Remember, a substantial number of women, particularly North India, have been voting for the BJP. Now the question is, can the opposition prick a hole in the narrative of developmentalism, in the narrative of welfarism, in the narrative of India marching ahead, surging ahead? I think this is how the opposition, this will test the opposition's credential. It will also test the opposition's capabilities. It will also test the abilities of the parties to forge a united front on that account. I think if that doesn't happen, I will agree with you that perhaps this violence and this episode will be short-lived. People have a shorter memory and they will forget it. But it all depends on how the opposition, comes together, takes it as an issue. It will also depend on how the parliament, looks into this no confidence motion. What kind of speeches are given there? What kind of issues are aired there? Will the parliament actually end up debating the issue? Will they allow the prime minister even to respond? If the prime minister responds, will they have the tolerance to listen to the views of the prime minister? I think these are very, very important issues, and we'll see them being played out. So I agree with DK when he says that, well, it is a shorter issue. Public memory is short. You don't see the outrage on road. But yes, you do not see the outrage on the road. But if you ask any person on the road, he would definitely be saddened by whatever has happened in the Northeast. I think the other part of it is Northeast is something which the BJP has always, taken as a pride. Remember, the BJP is ruling directly, indirectly, in coalition or directly all the 7 states of the Northeast, right? It's a story that the Prime Minister would always want the world to hear. As how is it that despite being labeled as a Hindutva party, how is it that the BJP has spread its wing, particularly on those areas where some of the issues that the BJP would want to champion may not be having too much of attraction, and yet the BJP is in power there. Remember, Prime Minister's push for the Northeast is also part of the Act East policy as an investment hub, as a hub connecting India to the distant part of the Southeast Asia. So therefore, Northeast, how it pans out will also depend on how the Prime Minister projects it to the world. So it's not. So I believe that this whole idea, whole issue of Northeast will continue to resonate, particularly in the times to come. And it will test the capabilities of both the political groupings to pan it up or to frame it in a national debate. If the opposition fails to do that, then perhaps I would agree with you that it will be short-lived, and perhaps the Bharatiya Janata Party would be able to ride over it and trump over it. That's what I believe.
If you look at the larger issue here, well, the Prime Minister has not spoken on it. I mean, he broke his silence, but that was limited to that video, to that incident. He has not spoken on the larger issue. That's fine. But what we have seen in the past, we saw whenever PM spoke, people who have been voting for him have just said, okay, fine, he has spoken, they forget everything. We saw what happened after, say, demonetization. For days he was silent, and suddenly he goes to Goa and says, give me 50 days. And suddenly everything quietens down. We saw even during the second wave of COVID, when the government was almost absent. But once, vaccination happened, and everybody was talking about Modi, free food grains, vaccination. So they tend to forgive Modi for whatever acts of omissions or commissions. So in Manipur again, he has been silent, but when we talk about no confidence motion, when he responds to the Lok Sabha, when he gives a larger picture, he says something, and then he says things are fine now. Probably people would be giving him a benefit of doubt and saying, okay, it was Biren Singh's fault. Probably it's not Modi. You should not be punishing Modi for what Biren Singh did or what his party did in Manipur. I'm just trying to see, that segregation that the voters have been doing when it comes to Modi, his larger-than-life image.
Well, there are too many things, here. First of all, I think the Prime Minister enjoys a larger support base, particularly in the area where agitational politics is all at its best. So if you really look to the agitational politics in the yesteryears, as well as in the contemporary times that we live in, you'll see that largely agitational politics comes, from Uttar Pradesh, from Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. That the cow belt is what basically we call the cow belt is known for its agitational politics, right? And given the fact that the proximity to Delhi in the heartland is too shorter in that sense, it does pan out in that way. In that sense, Northeast is far away. In that sense, that solidarity is something that you will not find on the physical space, but that solidarity is very easy to find in the hearts of the middle class Indians, even in the lower middle class Indians. Everywhere the solidarities are there, but yes, it has not taken the shape. That's one. The geographical distance may be one reason. The second and important issue is that, as I said, the Prime Minister has a larger than life image, particularly in these states, right? And therefore, people tend to listen to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister also at times has shown his competence and his caliber. I mean, let's be reminded of the COVID thing. I mean, when the mismanagement news started coming in, whether it's the responsibility of the states or whether it's the responsibility of the center, the Prime Minister stepped in. And when he stepped in, he spoke. And when he spoke, he tried to match it with the capability of the state in terms of delivery. And therefore, people took it. People did accept Prime Minister at the face value. So the Prime Minister has that magic, has that image, has that acceptance, has that legitimacy. That is why it is very important to see how the Prime Minister responds. And when the Prime Minister responds, it will have to also be seen whether that response is matched by the capability of the state to counter that kind of an ethnic strife that is going on in Manipur. Remember, it's not religious strife; it's an ethnic strife. Ethnic strife which has been coupled by or maybe augmented by many factors which are there. I mean, it's not just a Meti cookie thing. It's also related to economy. It's related to possession of resources. It's also related to political empowerment. It's also related to national security. It also has an international dimension added to it. So how the Prime Minister speaks, what he speaks, and how that's matched up in the state in terms of bringing the required stability that is required for a longer period of stability is something that we'll have to see. And if that had to happen, naturally the Prime Minister would have taken a positive step, and the BJP would feel itself as comfortable. On the other hand, the opposition, therefore, will always try to prick a hole in whatever attempts are made by by the Prime Minister and his party. Now, it depends on how the opposition keeps the issue burning, or keeps bringing on issue after issue which are embedded within that, right? So will it only talk about the ethnic strife, or will it also then bring in the issue of women's welfare, women's security, women's empowerment, driving from there, right? So what I'm saying is, in the political landscape, there is an issue. Now, that issue is there for both the opposition as well as the ruling dispensation. Now, the ruling dispensation will always want status quo. It is the opposition which will therefore start peeling the issue and making that narrative count. Most importantly, the opposition will have to have that kind of a presence amongst the public, right? Remember, the BJP is a well-oiled party. It has its presence on the routes. It has people to counter whatever rumors, whatever narratives are there on the street. Will the opposition also be able to counter that strategy? Will the opposition be able to have its people on the street talking about the issue and making people understand the issue? This is why a political grouping which is not firmly rooted will have issues to face off, right?
We already see that.
Carry on.
We already see that. Look, the opposition is trying to fight it out in Parliament, outside through press conferences, on Twitter. And you see the Prime Minister going out among the people, addressing rallies, and conveying what he has to say directly. So this, there is clear division. The way the opposition,
But that's basically because the Prime Minister is the leader and the undisputed leader of his group, of his party. When the Prime Minister is the driver, the others are, the followers. Now, in the other grouping, it's yet to consolidate. Remember, it's just a new formation. They have cobbled this up, but the fact of the matter is whether it will be stronger enough to really get sedimented is an issue. So that is why the Prime Minister will, try and drive it in a very different direction. That's what the ruling party is supposed to be doing. The opposition has to block it, right? To what extent the opposition will block it? How does the opposition get into the civil society organizations? How does the opposition build up support through and via the civil society organizations? How does the opposition also remember, some of these political parties which have now come up within the India gang, the India group, please understand that they do have their people at the grassroots. Now, whether they would allow them to go to the grassroots and build up that narrative is the issue. I was just looking to the newspapers today. Remember, in the hurry to submit that no confidence notice, remember they didn't even bring all the groupings or the subgroupings. They didn't get the signature of all the concerned MPs from the parties that make India, isn't it? That political outfit. So I think, and I think Kharge Saab had to apologize for that, and he said, well, it was in a hurry, you did it, so it's accepted. But the fact of the matter is, will they be able to really transform their vision and ideas on the grassroots is the real question.
Professor Singh, you are making a very interesting point here. Now, the Congress had been missing on the ground. All through, we have seen for the last 9 years, you don't really see the Congress in action on the ground. Workers are there, but they are hardly active. What you're saying is that so-called India umbrella brings in that fighting power to the opposition. You have somebody like, say, Kejriwal or Aam Aadmi Party, which has its cadre on the ground. You have somebody like, say, Mamata Banerjee, who has her cadres on the ground. So, probably these parties may bring that firepower to the Congress when it comes to agitations on the ground.
But will they do it? Why would they do it is the question. And if they were to do it, what kind of ground would the Congress provide to them? To what extent the Congress would be accommodative? Remember, yesterday at least it was not technically accommodative. Perhaps intentionally it may have been, but technically it was not accommodative. It didn't have the patience to wait. And then you had a statement from Rahul Gandhi saying that perhaps the Congress is the driver and perhaps is the force against the BJP. So, the problem is the language of I and we will actually have to be, used very cautiously. Is the Congress, if the Congress is driving it, it will have to ensure that the other bigger drivers are accommodated with a sense of dignity and are given their due. Remember, both Akhilesh Yadav, Nitish Kumar, RJD, uh, uh, um, uh, Mamta Banerjee, they are regional leaders having their foot on the route. They have their presence on the route. When they speak, their cadres also are on the street. The Congress simply doesn't have it, particularly in this northern India, from where bulk of the number of member of parliaments would come. So if it is going to use that foot soldier, right, that's why it's very difficult. Of what kind of space would the Congress open up? What kind of leeway would the Congress give to them? If it's ready to do that, if the others are ready to accept it, well, that's perhaps we'll see in the times to come.
Well, one of our viewers have also sent a question. Suresh Kumar wants to know that he's saying that it looks like Manipur violence and unrest could be trouble to NDA. What is your take?
Well, see, I mean, it's too early to say whether it's trouble or not. But yes, as I said, it is a triggering event. It has triggered some discontent. I mean, I definitely can say that it is triggering discontent. It's triggering discontent amongst every section of society. So it's not that the BJP supporters are not touched by it. Now, whether that event is that powerful, emotive enough to get the people supporting the BJP to change their, loyalty and support is the larger question, right? And I can tell you with certainty that, when this event happened, I mean, when this incident happened, the first reaction came from a set of BJP MPs. I remember distinctly chairing a meeting of, civil society members, professors, a minister from Northeast, a very important minister in the current central government, whose house was later, burnt by mob. He was a speaker, a member of parliament from Nagaland. Maybe the lady member from Miss Madam Konyak was also one of the speakers, right? I was chairing the session. It was a, kind of a conference, or call it, a brainstorming session, where tempers ran high, but ultimately everybody came together. The idea would have been to take it up from there towards the state. I was pretty hopeful that that would happen. That did not happen. Why did that not happen? What is the miss? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that such an incident as whatever happened in Northeast, or for that matter anywhere, should not be allowed to happen. And all sensitivities should be put in place, crossing across political hues and ideologies, to ensure that peace and stability returns in that state. Because remember, Manipur is not just a other state. It is a very strategically located, a very important state for India and India's future goals and aims in the Committee of Nations. As I said, maybe this is not the right time to talk about it, right? But the fact is, the BJP did make some initial moves. Why did that not happen? Why did it not, really become big enough to allow the union to intervene through civil society? Remember, civil society groups are very important groups in the Northeast, which allow stability and peace to come in. Why did that not happen is still a puzzle for me, right? So I think in the month of May itself, this grouping was brought in at the behest of a member of parliament from the Bharatiya Janata Party group. A large gathering was there. I mean, a gathering consisting of professors from JNU, from DU, professors from the Meitei group, professors from the Kuki group, 3 MPs or 2 MPs, a minister, all came together to do the brainstorming. I don't know what happened thereafter.
But just to add a supplementary to that, you said that, there were some mistakes on the part of the BJP and how they handled the situation. Well, a lot of NDA allies from the Northeast have also shown unease with which, the entire issue has been handled. Some have even been vocal about it. What does it mean for the alliance also? Because a number of them say that it is not, as far as, optics goes, we should not be seen with the BJP.
Well, I think one of the important reasons for that would be that if you really look to Manipur and its ethnic base, you'll see that there is a clear majority minority divide, right? And if I'm not wrong, I'm told that the cookies, particularly, did support the BJP, particularly given the fact that they were really unhappy with the Congress before Biren Singh became became the chief minister, right? Now, once that happened, that's the compulsion of politics, right? That you win support to put your government in, and then when it comes to government formation, I mean, the support comes from whichever side it comes, and you're happy with it. But once the government is put into place, well, the divide between the majoritarianism and minoritarianism becomes very evident, right? And so, therefore, the BJP did not do anything different what the Congress would be doing before that, particularly in terms of governance of the state, right? So I think if the only wrong thing that one could say happened in Manipur is that the BJP should have, or at least Viren Singh should have applied impartiality, should have applied, the constitutional vision of morality and security before anything. That's what captains are supposed to be doing. That's what captains are supposed to be. That's why captains are captains and they lead from the front. Once you have a government, the government is everybody's government. It cannot be supposed to be a government of the Metis or the cookies, because it's a government of everyone. And that is the role of any government, of any party. I think that's where perhaps the simmering started. And of course, there are other issues. As I said, this is just not an ethnic issue. This is an issue of political economy. This is also an issue which has a considerable or sizable proportion, coming out of that welfare schemes itself, particularly reservations. Who is to get the reservations? Who would be the beneficiaries of it? Why? What for? Where is the concentration of Metis living in the valley? Who are the Chin ethnic groups coming from Myanmar, right? So there are so many things, and because of these things, that is where the chief minister should have led from the front, not allowing his own personal ethnic majoritarian loyalties to come in the way. Remember also the fact that, we do say that India has been a democracy, but remember that the real democratic spirit in that sense is only in the last 7-10 years that it is reaching the Northeast now, right? So when you have too much of democracy and liberty, and when you don't have those, people who could, cushion it with their vision, with their understanding, with their, ability to bring everybody together, accomodativeness, I think that is where democracies can easily degenerate and slip into some kind of a chaos, right? So, yeah.
Let me ask you about your assessment of how the BJP has reacted. Okay, so everybody knows how Biren Singh government messed it up. What CM himself did, everybody knows. And still the BJP is being very stubborn. The Prime Minister is being very cussed that we will not take any action against our Chief Minister or the government. How do you explain that? Is it arrogance, or is it kind of helplessness? There is nothing that can be done.
Well, I mean, I can use a metaphor. Let's assume that there's a ship sailing in the deep sea, and perhaps it's an error of the pilot. Now, when the ship is in the deep sea, do you throw the pilot out of the ship? If you do that, that's going to create more problem, right? So I would have reasons to believe that something would be done there, hoping that it happens. But if it's not done, then that's again, as I said. So we go back to the question: Manipur may become stable now, and perhaps God willing, things come to normalcy. The question is the aftermath of the normalcy. Now, will the opposition allow the BJP to escape with it? Will the opposition continue to flare it up by marking up issues emanating out of the humanitarian crisis? I think these are things which the strategists of the opposition, whosoever they are, will answer you better. But yes.
Problem here is when you give that metaphor, when the captain is looking hell-bent on sinking the ship. You need to change the captain. You talk to everybody in Manipur, academics, activists, everybody says you remove the captain. There would be some sense of relief, the kind of disgruntlement that you see in another community among the tribals, the anger, probably it will subside a bit. Just to bring the tempers down, remove him.
Well, I mean, even if you were not to do that, I mean, I would rather take it in a different way. I mean, the constitutional morality demanded, at least demands that Article 356 could have been imposed there. I mean, forget about changing the chief minister. If that is a compulsion, 356 could have been invoked. If it cannot be invoked now, when do you invoke it then, right? What is 356 meant for? So I think that is a larger question. Why is it? And remember, now what you're seeing is also a demand for a separate state by certain tribal groupings, right? So when you say stability would come in, is this stability only about opening of the schools and kids going 75% or 30% or whatever percent going back to the school, or is it also about ensuring that arising out of this incidents, that instability, which had been a very important factor for decades, does not return back in terms of demand of a separate state or perhaps a separate political administrative setup? Because if that happens, really, if that gains traction to that level, then remember that instability can come back again. And remember, there are, the borders, we're not talking of international borders. We're also talking of borders within the state. I mean, see, a lot of people are now migrating towards Mizoram. So Mizoram will start having a problem. A lot of people will then start migrating towards Assam. That will also have a problem, right? So the point is, it's not just about containment of violence. It's also to ensure that all these, sub-regional, sub-ethnic tendencies, which can possibly, inflate into a demand for a separate state, and the violence that may accompany that as well, is also put under control. So I would rather say that this is where the BJP has its challenge. This is where the Prime Minister needs to show his super captaincy, to frame it that way, and put the things to rest.
Last question from me. Even if normalcy returns, normalcy quote unquote, the fact that Manipur is going to be or to remain divided geographically. You have Kukis on the hills, you have Meiteis in the valley, hardly any interaction. That intermixing, it's not going to happen in the next few years. I mean, it will take some time before they'll come back together as a society. Nobody can roll it out. They will come back, or they can come back. But then it will be hanging like a big question mark on the Prime Minister, that this is what you have done to Manipur. Now, Manipur, there will always be a question mark on his governance, given the way the Manipur has turned out to be and the way the BJP government has handled it. Will it have any bearing on his image as a strong and decisive leader?
Well, it depends on how he, he's not said a lot about Manipur till now. I mean, just one statement. It depends on how he then opens up in the parliament. And that is where the opposition will have to have the patience, now that they have brought in the bill, the no confidence motion, remember, sorry. They will have had to have the patience to listen to him. I have my own issues on that. I mean, will that happen or not is a question. I mean, I'm not a astrologer to tell you what the future course of events would be. But given the fact that the opposition knows it very well, that it doesn't have the number, and if it has pushed deliberately to ensure that people speak up, will the Prime Minister accept that is a question. If he accepts it and speaks up, will the opposition have the patience and the perseverance to listen to him? If the opposition has the patience and perseverance to listen to him, then will the Prime Minister match action by the words that he utters on the floor of the House? If that were to happen, I think the country will again see what statesmen are made of. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that will happen in the next week or so, which will determine the contours of how Manipur issue spans up in the time to come.
There is also a problem with this no confidence strategy, because over several hours people will be talking about a whole lot of issues. It will won't be confined to Manipur. They will be talking about your strategic relationship with other countries. They will be talking about your internal security. Apart from Manipur, they will be talking about ED, CBI. There are a melange of issues. So when the Prime Minister gets up to speak, he may choose to pick up the things that suit him. I mean, he does not have to say something substantive of Manipur. He can just be rhetorical and get away with it, because the no confidence debate will involve a whole lot of things.
I agree with that. That is why I said that perhaps will it succeed the way it has been planned is the question. And if it doesn't remember, then the way it will get into people's mind is also a question which you and I will have to sit down and talk about it. I mean, think of it, if so many issues are flagged up, and a lot of issues they talk about, then in that melee, a lot of issues will be lost, and it will only be advantageous to the ruling dispensation than to simply just to brush them aside, give a statement and go away. And that is when what would happen is that the opposition will then try and create again some sort of, that's what they can do given the numbers they have, a ruckus, and that's where the adjournment would come in and the monsoon session will be over.
And as you pointed out, the monsoon session will be over, the BJP will be back in the field, talking about the issues that suit us.
They're already in the field.
And from the opposition side, nothing on the ground.
I think as you said, 6th of July, if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they already had a meeting in Assam led by a lot of functionaries from the RSS, MPs from the Northeast, piloted by Hemanta Biswa Sarma, Sarvananda Sonowal. They're already in the field. That it's not that they're not in the field. So what would happen is the opposition is making a hue and cry. True, good that they're doing it because that's their role. The point is, when ideals are not matched by power, they just are called lofty ideals. Remember, covenants without swords are but words. So I think the opposition will have to do this, and then will match it by action on the ground. And because that action is not on the ground, it's just on the parliament, it hardly bothers the man on the street. I think that is where we started from. The issue is important. But remember, I mean, when you duck a bouncer or hook it, it's the challenge of it's a challenge for the opposition.
Well, thank you so much, sir, for this detailed analysis, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you, DK.
Thanks, sir.